Well, welcome back to H360 Health Talk. I'm here once again with Dr. Jay Talsania from Lehigh Valley Health Network and Dan Dillard from the Burn Prevention Network. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. Our pleasure.
You mentioned that you had somebody come in that picked up, we would call it a dud, right? Maybe you light it, you throw it, and it doesn't go off. You don't hear the bang, but that's still a live.
Yeah,
that still can wreak havoc.
So absolutely, if people are going to do it and something lights and doesn't go off, put it in water, don't try to relight it, and don't pick it up. And in general, if you're going to light fireworks, try not to hold them with your hand.
Now, what about, a lot of these fireworks and sparklers, they're spraying I would assume that it's very hot particles away from the rod that it's on. So not only are you in jeopardy or something going off and, eliminating fingers, but what about the backlash or the back powder that sprays into the face? Do you see a lot of that?
I don't see those injuries. I only see them when I'm called in for their hand or fingers, but I would imagine there's some burns that people are seeing.
Yeah, we deal with the burn end, and the worst and most traumatic of the fireworks-related injuries are the kinds that Dr. Talsania deals with. In terms of quantity or numbers, 69% of the fireworks-related injuries are burns. And the seriousness of that will be contingent to length of time of contact, intensity of the heat, and so forth. So back to a sparkler. Just last year, the Regional Burn Center had a very heartbreaking incident where a little child was playing with a sparkler. Mom had handed it to him, and they were waving it around, watching the sparks and making their name in the air like you do. And their little 2-year-old sister was in the yard, and the sparkler slid out of their hands, went in the air, landed, and went down inside the diaper of the toddler. And that child had third-degree burns, which are going to leave scarring for the rest of their life. That's a sparkler. No one thinks of that as dangerous.
Sure.
But that little 2-year-old is going to carry both the reminder of the pain and the scar for the rest of their life.
Another popular one are the bottle rockets. What are the caution elements we have to be concerned with there?
Don't ever aim that at anybody. Aim them up in the air.
Yeah. If you're going to do them, aim them away, aim them up in the air.
B, if you're going to do it, aim it up in the air away from people.
Yeah.
And don't hold them when you light them.
I had a college roommate that had a glass eye, and the reason he had the glass eye was he got shot in the eye as a young boy with a bottle rocket, lost his eye. So, yeah, never aim them at anybody. And again, just because they don't go off, it doesn't mean that there's not still a spark in there or that it can't go off. You got to be really careful about that.
Dave, and a comment regarding the bottle rockets or any airborne type of explosive that you can now buy. The statute in Pennsylvania, I'm not exactly sure what it is in New Jersey, and it varies from state to state. But the statute in Pennsylvania is that you cannot discharge any of these devices like bottle rockets within 150 feet of an occupied residence. So if you're in your backyard and your neighbor's house is 100 feet across the fence, you're in breach of law if it flies and lands in their yard.
So prior to this new legislation coming about, did the age change? How old do you have to be to pull into a fireworks place in Pennsylvania and leave there with a trunk load of fireworks?
I believe in Pennsylvania it's 21.
Okay.
You can purchase these.
And there's quantities and limitations set on what you can buy, how much of the different types of fireworks you can buy?
At this point in Pennsylvania, virtually everything below category of an M80 you can buy, which is quarter stick of dynamite. You can't buy those. Anything from that point up, which are your professional exhibit type of fireworks, but the bottle rockets, the Roman candles, the heavier duty fireworks or firecrackers, you can buy all those now.
Now, Doc, out of you thinking back about the many years that you've seen these people come into the OR with these injuries, how many of them, if you could just estimate, are alcohol related?
I would say at least 50%.
Hell, yeah, certainly not the little girl that the sparkler fell in her diaper. I wouldn't imagine, but it's always after a few beers.
Yes.
That Uncle Charlie says, "Guys, I brought a treat for us today," and opens his trunk and brings out the fireworks, and the next thing you know, you have an issue.
Yeah, usually around picnics, usually in the evenings.
But it's not just 4th of July. I mean,
it's all summer long.
It's all summer long. You're out enjoying the summer, enjoying barbecues, and somebody's liable to have fireworks more times than not.
One thing that we haven't talked about, and it's not on any of our literature, is I have 2 dogs, and when they hear it go off, pet owners, it's very disturbing to the pets.
Yeah.
And it used to be just on July 4th, and now it's all summer long, at least in my neighborhood.
And another group that we're working with that are very vulnerable are veterans who are suffering from PTSD. It really triggers their disease.
So these are things you really don't think about,
No.
right? You don't think about that dud firecracker and a dog maybe seeing it going over and it exploding.
Well, I'm just
on the
talking
dog.
about them being sent off down the neighborhood and the dogs hearing it through the windows at home.
Yeah, or some of our veterans that are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder hear that and it triggers an episode. Those are things that we really don't think about when we're out enjoying a barbecue and decide to do some fireworks. There's some tips here or some things that I want to go through, and maybe I can just kind of we'll round robin a little bit, get us to comment on these. I think many of them we've touched on here today. So let me just read down through here. Number 1, never let children light or play with fireworks. I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
I would include with that hold sparklers.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, avoid buying fireworks that are packaged in brown paper because it's often a sign that fireworks are made for professional displays. Dan, what about these kind of generic or these fireworks that are really meant for professional use?
Correct. Well, first of all, 2 of the major commercial fireworks manufacturers in this country happen to have their headquarters in Pennsylvania. So the majority of what we have available locally are going to be more regulated. But across the country, a high percentage of fireworks are imported, and mostly from China.
So would you think the majority of the fireworks are coming from outside the country, or are they from these 2 manufacturers that are headquartered in Pennsylvania?
I can't conclusively prove either of those, but my guess is a fair proportion are cheap imports because that's where people get the profit margin. If you go to the brick and mortar stores that exist across the state, those are likely to be manufactured here in the United States.
The next point is have an adult supervise fireworks activities. Doc, you said that about 50% are adults or 50% are alcohol related, so I'm assuming that they're of legal drinking age.
I would take this back to number 1, don't let kids do it.
Period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With or without supervision, I wouldn't do it.
Never place any part of your body directly over a firework device when lighting the fuse. You would think that people wouldn't do that, but I'm sure you've heard the stories of people coming in with fingers missing, hands missing, and that's not always the case.
You're right, it's self-evident, but I think what we see here is you have someone setting off a bottle rocket, and they stick them, the extending piece into the bottle, and the bottle falls over. So they want to correct, they reach down to do that, when they do, it goes off, and then they have the burn or the explosion to the hand. So.
Well, I don't think, I don't think many fireworks that I've ever seen have extra long fuses. I mean, that's a pretty short fuse. So it's not allowing much margin of error for that bottle that's holding that bottle rocket to fall over, or it being pointed in a direction that it shouldn't be. That fuse is relatively short. Move back quickly after lighting the firework. I think that one is pretty self-explanatory. Never
But
try.
the point there is you're not holding it when you light it. It's got to be somewhere else, off your body.
Yeah. So and how do we educate people even on sparklers? I mean, if somebody's going to do it, should these children be wearing a glove? I mean,
No, the sparklers should be stuck into the ground.
Stuck into the ground.
And then lit, and then you have a safe zone of at least 6 feet.
Never try to relight or pick up fireworks that have not ignited fully.
Agree.
Yeah.
You don't know what your time left is on the fuse.
Right.
Keep a bucket of water or a garden hose handy. This is a really good tip that I would imagine not a lot of people do.
Yeah, and let's go back to sparklers. Just because the sparks are no longer ejecting into the air doesn't mean that previously molten metal is not still hot enough to burn. So once they're expended, they should go right into a bucket of water.
Light fireworks one at a time. I know in the excitement of fireworks, people are probably trying to light as many as they can, but rule of thumb, light one at a time.
I've even seen people injured and admitted to the emergency department from compacting multiple rolls of caps from cap pistols and hitting them with a hammer. It's the multiplying impact of putting that much TNT.
I'd like to add, the public, lights them with a match or a fire starter. The professionals, it's computerized, it's electronic, they're far away. They are not on site when they're lighting these devices.
That's a good
They're
point.
50 yards away, and it's a computer, and it's long fuses.
And more times not, if you think about simply the Macy's fireworks display, I mean, that's on a barge in the middle of the Hudson, right? Surrounded by water, and they set it up, and the people that are igniting them are probably somewhere on land, as you point out, lighting them with some kind of electronic device, sending that signal to that barge and lighting off those fireworks. Yes. Douse the spent device with plenty of water from a bucket or hose before discarding it to prevent a trash fire. How many times have you seen that? I mean, putting those hot,
I don't see those.
those hot sparklers, in the trash with everything else from the picnic. Always keep a bucket of water there, ready to douse that.
Well, Dave, what that does is introduce another dimension we've not addressed yet. We've been talking about physical injuries from fireworks. The other aspect of this is property damage. There are close to 19,000 fires every year associated with fireworks that create or result in close to $54 million in property damage.
You mentioned economics. One thing to touch on is some of these are devastating injuries that will change your career and sometimes put people out of work. I recently had a chef who lost his hand, and he can't work as a chef anymore. So it's a life-changing economic event.
So now, Doc, when you say he lost his hand, does that mean a finger or two?
No.
Tell me what that means.
He has a wrist disarticulation, so his 2 forearm bones he has remaining, and no carpal bones or wrist bones, and nothing beyond that.
And so what kind of a firework causes that kind of damage?
I don't know exactly what it was, but he reached in and thought he was lighting something smaller, and it wasn't. And he came to Lehigh Valley Hospital with a devastating injury to his dominant hand.
Do you gear up at the hospital for the 4th of July? Are you talking to the staff? Okay.
Well, there's a variety of hand surgeons, and we rotate call on that particular weekend. It's usually a busy 3 or 4 days.
Yeah. Well, Dan, thank you for joining me. Dr. J, thanks for coming in. I hope you enjoyed this segment, and I wish everybody a safe, happy, and healthy 4th of July.